You're in Nashville. Is today a travel day?
It is, yeah. We're not playing tonight, but we're doing, I think, 350 miles, so it's quite a long drive. We're actually coming to the States 3 times this year, and I don't have all the details for all the dates. I know the 3rd time we're going to the West Coast, but it gets a bit disorientating when you keep you keep going to different places all the time, and you can very easily forget where you are or where you're going if you're not careful.
Life on the road, right?
Yeah, that's what it's like. And of course, to start with, we have the jet lag to get over. But we started off in Canada about 2 weeks ago, and for the first few days, the jet lag is really strange, and it leaves you very muddled, to say the least. So, it can get a bit confusing, but maybe it sort of adds to the fun, really, because you don't really know where you are or where you're going.
Yeah, it's more of an experience.
It's just very exciting to tour with a wonderful band like the Zombies.
Of course, you've been doing that for a very long time.
We have. We've sort of done it in 2 main bursts, because we did it in the 60s, from 64 to 67. And then Rod and I and all the other guys went off and concentrated on other projects. And it wasn't, although Rod he'd produced many of my albums, and I'd sung on various concerts for him. So we'd always worked together. But it wasn't till about the year 2000 that we decided to go back on the road together again, as a full-time project. Not actually as the Zombies. That thought didn't cross our minds. We both have quite successful solo careers in the UK and in Europe, and we were going to play songs from those solo careers. We were just called Colin Blunstone and Rod Argent. But when we got back on the road, we realized there was huge interest in the Zombies catalogue, and we started including more and more zombie tunes because people were asking for them. And it was interesting for us too, because we hadn't played these songs since the 60s, and many of them we probably had never played live at all, because the band broke up before our last album, Odyssey and Oracle, was actually released. So a lot of those songs we never played live. So it was a voyage of discovery for us as well. We were finding all these old songs that we'd pretty much forgotten, and then as we played more and more zombie tunes, it just seemed the natural thing to reactivate the name. And so now we tour under the name of the Zombies. But it's something that's evolved. It's not something that we planned. And it's something that was a huge surprise to us, this interest in the Zombies. But it's been a very pleasant surprise. It's been great. We just weren't expecting it.
Well, I know that in the late 80s, I was reading that there were some bands that were playing as the Zombies, under some fake bands playing under the Zombies. And I saw that one of them hired a bassist named Ronald Hugh Grundy, so they could say that it was Hugh Grundy who had switched instruments.
I know. It's bizarre, isn't it? Why people would think that our drummer, Hugh Grundy, would emerge in some new Zombies playing the bass. I mean, it's okay. It's a nice coincidence for them that they've got the same name, but it's a bit ridiculous to think that. But I'll tell you about that band, because we tried everything we could to discourage them in a legal sense. I went to the Musicians Union. We tried lawyers from our side of the Atlantic. They were an English band. There have been many, but this is the particular one you're talking about, I know. We tried lawyers, and eventually they stopped, and I thought, well, I don't know what we did, but we did something to discourage them. But then I realized, or I was told afterwards, that a disgruntled fan went into their dressing room and accused them of being a phony band, which they were, and backed it up with a gun and threatened them with a gun in their dressing room. And they never played again.
Well, that's probably smart of them. Fans get angry when they don't get what they want to see.
Well, I can understand them being angry. The gun may be going just a little bit far, but it worked.
It did work.
It certainly did.
It was hard. It was hard for them to argue.
If an English person sees a gun pointed at them, I mean, we never ever see a gun. If someone pointed a gun at me, I would have heart failure, I think, on the spot. And I'm sure they practically had the same.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they were an English band, right?
Pardon?
The fake zombies, they were English too?
They were an English band, yeah, absolutely. I can remember them well. There have been other bands, but that one that used that name, Hugh Grundy, I remember them particularly well.
I saw that one band even tried to trademark your name at one point.
I think it was the same one, because we used to have a company. People are so silly. We used to have a company called The Zombies Limited, and there was no reason to keep that company going. And their manager, who I believe was a guy called Brian Gannon, I remember everything about this band. He thought, this is a real opportunity. They're not using their company name anymore, so he bought our company name, which is The Zombies Limited, but it's not The Zombies. In any case, that doesn't give you the right to go out and play Zombies material and infer that you're the original band. It's just very woolly, silly thinking.
Yeah, it's horrible. But luckily, you guys are back together now, and there's no question who the Zombies are.
Well, exactly. I mean, Rod was the principal writer. He wrote all the hits. I was the principal lead singer. I sang all the hits. We've talked it over with the other two guys. Sadly, Paul Atkinson passed away, our lead guitarist, some years ago in California. But Chris White, our bass player, and Hugh Grundy, our drummer, haven't really played since the 60s, and it really wouldn't be fair to ask them to go out on the road now with a 40-year gap. So we've talked it through with them and agreed that we'll take on the mantle of the Zombies. And we've got a very fine band around us, and we play the hits, and we play lots of obscure tracks too. And then we play the backbone of Odyssey and Oracle as well. And a lot of people are fascinated by this last album that we recorded. And so we play pretty much half of that album as well.
Of
and then
Breathe
we
In,
play a
Breathe
sprinkling
Out.
of other things that we've done through the years. Rod and I have had other careers, and so we just give people a slight idea of what else we've been doing over the years as well.
Are you talking about Breathe In, Breathe Out, the 2011 album?
Well, that's the first album that we recorded together under the name of the Zombies, but we actually recorded two other albums before that, from when we got back together again in the year 2000. But on top of that, of course, Rod formed a band called Argent, which were quite successful in the 70s. He then went on to be a very successful producer and produced many successful albums. On my part, I became a solo artist, and in the UK and in Europe, I've had many hit records. Sadly, none of them were hits in America. But from our two careers, we just select little segments, and we'll insert that into the show and just try and explain to people that while we've been away, this is what we've been doing.
Well, I really enjoy the new album. I've been listening to Breathe In, Breathe Out. It's a very good album, and so you're going to be playing some tracks off that as well at Waterloo.
Absolutely, yes. We'll play 3 or 4 songs from the new album. We play all the hits as well. You know, we'll be playing for an hour and a half on most of the shows, unless I think some of them might be slightly cut down, but that would be our standard show, would be an hour and a half. And I like to think that there's something there for everybody, because, as I said, we've been associated with other big records as well. From my part, the Alan Parsons Project, I sang on 5 or 6 of their albums, and so we'll play a song from the Alan Parsons Project that I sang in the studio, and most people will know that song. And we'll sing 1 or 2 songs from Argent as well.
Did it feel special to be back recording Breathe In, Breathe Out all those years later and under the name of the Zombies and be back together again? And I think one of the guitarists in the Zombies now was also in Argent.
That's right. The bass player is a founder member of Argent. His name's Jim Rodford, and he was also there on the first day of the Zombies rehearsals. He's a local guy. He's actually Rod Argent's cousin, and he helped fix up our very, very first rehearsal in 1961. Jim Rodford was in a very big local band, and he managed to borrow all the amplifiers and the drum kit from his local band, and that's how the Zombies had their first rehearsal. So Jim Rodford was actually asked to join the Zombies right at the beginning, but he was in the biggest local band at the time, and so he declined and stayed in that band. But he's now in this present lineup of the Zombies. So we got our man in the end. We asked him to join the Zombies in 1961, and he eventually joined us when we put this band together about the year 2000. And as I said, we've actually recorded 3 albums with this lineup.
Oh, with the exact same lineup.
Well, actually, the lead guitarist changed. He was a guy called Keith Airy on the first 2 albums, and he left. And a new lead guitarist came in called Tom Toomey. But otherwise, the lineup's the same. So for me, the really exciting thing was when we did our first album together since 1967. It was called Out of the Shadows, but it was just called Colin Blunstone and Rod Argent. Maybe it was Of the Zombies. We've sort of, the name that we've gone under has kind of changed over the last 10 years because we've tried to be very sensitive to what we're called. We don't want to give people a false impression of what the band is and what it stands for. But that first album, Out of the Shadows, was very exciting to be back together again, working with Rod Argent and Jim Rodford, and Jim's son, Steve Rodford, is a wonderful drummer, and he's been in this incarnation of the Zombies from the beginning as well. So it was great to be back in the studio again, and immediately we knew that there was a connection between us. There was a little bit of magic when we go into the studio and we play together. We feel very natural together. We almost know what the other person is thinking before they say what they want. It's just a very, very good recording relationship.
Well, you can hear it. It comes through. Definitely.
Oh, good. I'm really glad.
The quality is definitely still there, and I'm going to try to stop by your Waterloo show myself. I'm actually going to be giving away a couple of tickets to your meet and greet for some lucky listeners.
Excellent. Well, I'm really looking forward to that. I can remember back in England, we were asked about this playing at a really big record store, and I can remember all the details coming together, so I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, Waterloo is very excited to have you. I have lots of people, when I announced that I was doing this interview, you have no idea how many people contacted me saying they were huge fans, have always been huge fans, and they cannot wait to see you guys.
It's really interesting because that's what we found. There's a kind of a silent niche market that has been waiting for the Zombies, and I think the internet has really helped, as well as, of course, radio. But it's really helped to tell everyone that we're out there and we're playing these tunes that you remember from all those years ago, and it's been a really, really wonderful surprise to us that this silent majority is out there, silent minority perhaps, is out there and willing us to come out and play these tunes.
Well, what are your plans for the future? You can continue touring the U.S. as frequently as you have been?
Well, I think so. I mean, as I said earlier, we are actually coming 3 times this year. That's unusual for us. But I would imagine, I certainly hope so, that we will come usually every summer. And we usually tour for 4 or 5 weeks, and it's wonderful for us to play in this different market. In every market that you come to, every territory you go to, people know slightly different songs. And so it means we can slant our act in a slightly different way. We'll play different songs. When we're in the UK, we play a different set to the set that we play here. And when we go to the Far East, we play a very different set. And it's the same in Europe. We try and find out what people want to hear. And so it gives us an opportunity to play certain songs that perhaps we wouldn't normally play, and we really enjoy that.
Well, I can't wait to attend. And Odyssey and Oracle, was it strange to have the album become a little bit bigger and get released after the band had already broken up, or did it take time for that to pick up speed, Odyssey and Oracle?
Well, it was, when I look back, it was a very strange decision, probably, on behalf of the band. You see, the world was very singles-orientated then, and we'd had a couple of singles released from the album in the UK, and they hadn't really been the commercial success that we were hoping for. And I think everyone in the band just felt it was time to move on to new projects. But when I look back, of course we should have kept the band together until at least the album was released. But this album has had a very strange history. It didn't really pick up sales until about 15 years after it was released. For some reason, and no one knows why. I can only say it was word of mouth. that people suddenly started buying Odyssey and Oracle in quite large numbers, and it sells more today than it did then, and certainly more than when it was released. It really didn't sell in significant numbers when it was released. It's a bit of a phenomenon, and no one really understands what's happened with this album, because without promotion and without marketing, it sort of fought its way through to get the media's attention and to get the public's attention.
Well, it must have spoken to a lot of people to come back that way, and it's more authentic if you think about it, to have success that way, because it wasn't because of an A&R guy or a label that was pushing it. It was because people were listening and talking to each other about it because it affected them.
Well, I think in a way it's true. It's a wonderful way to have something come to prominence. I mean, my only sadness is that if it had been discovered earlier, possibly the band would have stayed together. And I've always been curious. Just wonder what we might have done next if we'd held together, because particularly the two predominant writers in the band had got into such a rich vein of writing. I'm always curious. I mean, it's silly because it's in the past. You can't rewrite history. But I'm, in a strange sort of way, I'm just curious what might have happened. But apart from that, I mean, of course, we're all thrilled that it finally has got that kind of acknowledgement that we'd hoped it would get way back in 1967.
Well, I know that you wonder about the past, but I think that having Odyssey and Oracle crystallized in that way as a piece of that time, that's a really special thing.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. I'm not sure. I mean, people could probably tell me that this has happened to other albums, but I'm not aware of any other album that has sort of resurfaced 15 years after it was recorded and come to prominence in a way that Odyssey and Oracle has. And, of course, Rolling Stone nominated it as one of the top 100 albums of all time. They actually had a list of the top 500 albums, I think, but Odyssey and Oracle was in the top 100 albums of all times. And if you look at the albums that are around it, it's things like Simon and Garfunkel and the Beatles and the Stones, and you think, wow, they're sort of judging this album to be on a par with these classic, all-time great albums. And it's such a lift for us, it really is.
Well, I agree with Rolling Stone on that, and I can't wait to see your show at Waterloo. And I want to say thank you so much for joining me on Sun and Scorpio. It's Austin's only show dedicated to psychedelic and garage, and I'm so happy to have you.
It's been fantastic talking to you. Thank you so much, and we're all really looking forward to coming down and playing at Waterloo Records.
Well, I will definitely stop by and say hi. Thank you so much, Colin.
Fantastic. That'll be great. Look forward to seeing you.